This is Radio Plasma, a space dedicated to the exchange of ideas, conversations, stories, music, performances, and randomness. Listen at radioplasma.com. Also, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, TuneIn, and Stitcher.
Welcome to Radio Plasma. I'm Johan Vega, and here we are in our studio of New England Media Lab inside Gateway City Arts in Holyoke. And I want to welcome El Oso Azul.
Hola, I am El Oso Azul. I am Easthampton's luchador. It's good to meet you. Good to see you again, Johan.
Thank you for being here, Oso Azul. And just to give the context of the meaning of the name is the blue bear.
Yes, the blue bear. El Oso Azul is a luchador character. For those of you who are not familiar with lucha libre is literally translated means free fighting, but it actually is the Mexican form of wrestling. El Oso Azul has been around Easthampton now from about 2016, I think is when El Oso Azul made his first appearance. But El Oso Azul has now become part of the Attack Bear Press family. He is part of an art project that we do to try to introduce people to the cross-cultural art form of lucha libre, and to talk to people about Chicano heritage, Mexican-American heritage, and kind of how the art form grew from really a trans-border experience that was happening around the 1920s in the southwest of the United States.
And one interesting aspect about lucha libre, particularly talking about the whole movement of lucha libre in Mexico, back in the 1960s, there were iconic characters like Santo and Blue Demon, who were basically the superheroes of Mexican folk. And they had really strong values, and they were role models for the kids growing up. And even today, that legacy still remains alive. Pretty much the whole movement of lucha libre, I think, is that big because of the legacy and the example of what El Santo and Blue Demon, among many others, created in the 60s in Mexico.
Yeah, don't forget Gordy Guevara and his kids, Chavo Guevara. Chavo's one of my personal heroes when it comes to the form. I'm also a huge fan of Rey Mysterio. I think he's an incredible athlete, and it's interesting because Rey Mysterio actually made the transition to the United States along with a lot of luchadors. It's fascinating to me that there's this art form. Like I said, it was about 1924 when a gentleman by the name of Salvador Gonzalez was in El Paso, and he was checking out the American wrestling scene, all of what we would know as contemporary wrestling, whether it's lucha libre or whether it's U.S. wrestling or Japan wrestling, which is the other big circuit, really stems from the South America and North American carnival circuit. It started as kind of test your strength against a strong man, and come and wrestle a bear. Literally, it's one of the reasons, along with us being Attack Bear Press, but it was one of the reasons that we chose El Oso Azul. Was there would be these events where it'd be like, come and wrestle the circus bear, and these things would go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and sometimes days. But it was Salvador Gonzalez who was in El Paso in 1924, and he saw kind of this shift that was happening in the American carnival circuit, U.S. American carnival circuit, to longer storylines, these kind of grudge matches against various characters. It's where we start seeing like the introduction of the heels and the faces, and how, you would build these characters up and they would be much shorter bouts. And he said, I want to take this back to Mexico. And so he goes and he starts the EMLL, if I'm not mistaken, was the first iteration, which later became the CMLL, which, to me it's incredible because the CMLL is the longest running sports firm in the world. It's, it has been in continuous operation since he founded it in 1924. And that's, it's an incredible feat just to keep anything going that long, but to keep a sporting thing going that long. And he introduces El Santo, he introduces Chavo, he introduces Gordy, the dynamic duo of Chavo and Gordy, the tag team the tag team group. And they literally become superheroes. They become, El Santo's films. If you've never seen El Santo's films, they're amazing. He had a comic book series that I think ran for 36 volumes, and that doesn't just mean individual issues. That meant volumes of issues. It was relaunched over and over and over again. Something like 164 films. He was literally this iconic character that was somewhere between like Superman and just a mythical hero. El Santo in particular, I think he has one of the most incredible stories. He was a gentleman who literally, and I'm going to refer to him as El Santo because that's part of the mythos around this character, was that, it wasn't until I think it was a week after his final, him and Gordy did a kind of retirement tour. And up until that point, no one had seen his face. No one, even his traveling companions, he would book separate hotel rooms. He had a sleeping mascaro that he would wear. Like, no one knew what this gentleman looked like. And it was a week after his final bout that he was on, the name of the show is gonna escape me, but he's on essentially a talk show, and he lifts his mask halfway so that the world could see his face. And I think it was a week later after that he ended up passing away. But tens of thousands of people attended his funeral, and he was buried in his mask and the iconic cape, and it was this kind of incredible moment in which really a myth was laid to rest. And it's hard to explain that outside of the cultural context in which it existed. But for me, I was born in a little town called El Centro, which is about a mile from the U.S.-Mexican border down near Mexicali, Calexico. I grew up in East Los Angeles, and so you would watch the CMLL at 11 o'clock at night. It came on channel 34. And you would watch the WWF at 2 in the afternoon on channel 5, KTLA. And to see this kind of incredible interconnection between these characters and this art form, and to understand that it really, for someone like me, one side of my family is Mexicano, Chicano, that's Cape Verdean, and then my dad is Scottish and British. But to see this kind of connection between two very different cultural heritages doing surprisingly the same things, and then you'd see characters from, the WWF go down to the CMLL, and you'd see the CMLL characters come up to the United States. And for me, when we started talking about, well, how do we introduce people here in New England who are very much outside of this culture that exists across the Southwest, to this really trans-border thing, how do you introduce them to that? Well, for me, it was easy. It was like, well, I guess I'm a luchador now. We wanted to honor it without appropriating the art form. And so what we do is El Oso Azul doesn't wrestle. He's retired. He does a series of art events, one of which is El Oso Azul's booth of love and life advice. And we did that at Cultural Chaos in 2018, and had a great time doing it. And what we think of the Peanuts booth, the psychiatry booth. And El Oso Azul is there to provide love and life advice to the people of the Pioneer Valley, and how to address your life using luchador values of honesty, justice, truth, and standing up for the little guy. We also do another event called El Oso Azul's Arroyo of Mythical Creatures. We just did this one for Art Walk 2019. We did it up in Belchertown with the Belchertown Cultural Council. So big shout out to Belchertown. They're great folks, in which we created a series of mythical creatures from both Chicano heritage, U.S. indigenous heritage, and we set them up and talk to people about, where do these creatures come from? Like, what's their mythology? With the idea that we wanted to demonstrate that, right now during these very, very difficult times. I mean, let's not pretend that, we have Hispanic culture, Latino culture. It is very much a part of the fabric of the U.S. It is very, very much, a part of the fabric of the U.S. There's that great quote that, the U.S. came to us, we didn't come to the U.S., because it was part of the westward migration after, the Mexican-American War. We saw Alta California, a lot of the Southwest folded into the fabric of the United States. And it wasn't an easy transition, but there are folks who, when they ask, like, well, your family's Mexican-American, where in Mexico are they from? And I'm like, well, this element is from, Sierra Majado and Chihuahua, but the rest of them are from here. They're Shumash and they're Hispanic. And it's fascinating to me to have this amazing art form that kind of demonstrates that and shows that, the first masquero, or the first masked luchador, was actually a Texan who was brought down by Salvador, and he kind of looked around and said, crap, I got this white, red-haired guy. I can't have him beating up on my, even as a heel, I can't have him beating up on my heroes. What can I do? And he's like, I'm going to stick him in a mask. And so he puts a mask on this guy, and that's kind of the launch of the masked luchador. Because not every luchador has a mask, but when we think of luchadors, we usually think of El Masqueros. We think of those who wear masks. And how, this kind of back and forth, and, it's, you watch the WWE now, which is, the U.S., what was the WWF, and you'll see, like, I think Chavo's son is now, this would be the grandson of Gordy, is now wrestling in the WWE. I know Rey Mysterio is now in the WWE. There's all of these characters that come from these iconic lineages going back in the CMLL, years and years, who are now making this crossover into a market that may not understand them. And it's great to see, like, when you watch a WWE event, to see, fans cheering on these, like, iconic Mexican heroes and going, like, okay, like, let's keep this going. Let's keep this going outside of the ring. And that was really kind of why we brought this to life. Initially, and I'm a little ashamed to admit it, I was actually wearing, initially I had been wearing a Blue Demon mask. Yeah. But we reached out to a great mask maker in Tijuana by the name, he's Romero's Mask Shop, and I've got to give him a shout out. Romero does amazing work. If you're looking for a Christmas present, try Romero's Mask Shop. He does amazing custom work. He worked with us. He designed the mask that I'm wearing now, and it's actually a performance mask. So it's not batted. It's very comfortable to wear. But yeah, Romero, big shout out to you. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias for what you did for us. And that idea that these borders that divide us are really, they're made up in so many ways, and they're not representative of, I think, really we all want truth, justice, and liberty and freedom, and to look to look at the history of this art form and to see it so beautifully encapsulated, like I feel honored to be able to share even just a fraction of that with the people of Western Mass. And so that's really where El Oso Azul came from and kind of what he's looking to do. We'll be doing a new El Oso Azul event coming up in November. We're going to be back out with the booth, providing love and life advice. And if you've gotten love and life advice from El Oso Azul, I'd love to hear from you. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Attack Fair Press. It's really one of our favorite events. It's really one of our favorite things that we do, not just because I get to pretend to be a superhero for a while, but when you put a mask on a kid and you see them embody that and see them, connect with it. We had done an event with the PTO or the PTA in Northampton, and I had some kids who were new to the area. They were from San Antonio, and they saw me there, and they were just so excited, and they knew the characters' names, and one of them called me out, and I really appreciate, because I hadn't got the El Oso Azul mask yet, and he's like, "You're wearing the Blue Demons mask," and I was like, "You're absolutely right, but here's the reasons." But to see that connection, and it's beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful thing, and we, like I said, we feel really, really honored. There's just a myriad of amazing luchadors out there right now. I came in here specifically to say if you want to learn more, there's a great luchador right now by the name of the Red Dragon, who wrestles in the CMLA. He's been injured for the last year. He hurt his knee, and he's been on really hustling to try to come back and if you want to find him on Instagram and Facebook, give him a shout out. He's an amazing, just an amazing athlete, for one. I mean, I can't do half of what he does, but also, he enters the ring. It's him and his daughter that enter the ring every time, and he wears a costume from the Mexican Revolutionary times. And it's a beautiful thing that really every time I see his entrance, I could watch his entrance and not actually watch his matches. It's so beautiful. Like, so go find him and tell him that New England's rooting for him.
As you describe the reaction of children seeing you, particularly when they know the iconic mask of a luchador, that is something that connects immediately with their roots, with their identity, with their culture. How has been the reactions that you have seen in children and community in general here in Western Mass, in New England, where they're not familiar as much as people in the Southwest and Mexico, of course, but how are their reactions to it? How do they feel when they interact with El Oso?
It's really kind of beautiful, actually. The first question I always get is, do you wrestle? Like, when's your next match? And I'm like, I'm retired. El Oso is retired. But to see folks who want to learn more, and it's such a great way for people to have entrance into a larger conversation. It's strangely disarming. I'm 6 foot. I'm 6 foot tall, about 230. I'm a large man, and you would think that a large man wearing a kind of a mask would scare people, but they don't. Especially New Englanders. They're like, "Oh, what's this? Like what? Like?" And then you can have that larger conversation, and you can kind of engage in that. And the kids, in particular, not just those who are very connected to the sport. But also those who know it kind of tangentially, because it's become a larger cultural milestone. Like there's a kids show about little luchadors, and they know it because they've seen it, and they may not know exactly what it is, but they're engaged by it, and so it's really interesting. And to have that conversation, where you can say, like, you may know this, you may have seen the look, you may have seen the aesthetic, but let's talk about what it is, and let's talk about where it comes from, and let's talk about how it connects us. For me, it's joyous. Like it's a joyous moment to stand by and get to talk to people, and it's been really good. I mean, the adults have been delightful, but you know, I'm also 41 years old, so if you see me out and about, if you see Oso Azul out and about, please don't try to put me in a headlock. I am an old man. I'm a very old man, but you know, it's been wonderful. It's been really wonderful, and you know, it's something that I think transcends a lot of the rhetoric that's out there right now, and for me, at least personally, and what we try to do with Attack Bear Press is a lot of what we try to do is demonstrate our similarities. We want to talk about, you know, issues and problems and challenges, but we also want to say to people, like, you know, there's more that connects us than that separates us. There is more that we have in common than we have in difference. And although you see me in this you know, costume, you know, you see me in this mask, I guarantee you know the spirit in which we're here and when we're talking, and it's, you know, I'm actually surprised how many people like come up and are just like, okay, I want love and life advice from a luchador. I want to know, and you start explaining the values, and something clicks. Like they're like, yeah, that's that. Yes, and that's really the reason to keep putting on the mask and going back out there. And you know, I had a gentleman come up to me when I was in Belchertown, and you know, he's like, do you ever feel like you can't do this here anymore, like with, you know, with some of the challenges that face us? And I'm like, no, you get back up. That's the chief, like, kind of the chief philosophy of every luchador is you get back up and you keep fighting. And so it's really inspirational for me personally, and to try to do art in our community and to try to share our take on art in the community, which sometimes, you know, isn't what you look around and see everywhere throughout the Pioneer Valley, you know, but to know that people embrace it and they want to know more and they want to learn more, you know, it keeps us going. It really keeps us going.
So it makes total sense that you are the ambassador of Attack Bear Press, because it's not only about the connection with the names.
Yes.
It is also how you connect a very specific form of art, which is lucha libre, mm-hmm. with everything that is involved with it: identity, culture, values, aesthetics, skills. A beautiful show.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous show.
And then incorporate it into a whole movement that is a representation of art, creativity, and again, creating a show, creating something that is fun, that it has values, that it has representation, and that is available to everyone.
Yes. Yeah, it's, you know, it surprised me initially how well it tied to our overall mission and our overall philosophy as an arts organization. Not just the idea of truth and justice and, you know, forward momentum that's based on overcoming adversity and challenge, but also the idea that, you know, when we all come together to watch something beautiful happen, you know, because lucha libre it's a beautiful art form. Like even going back when you looked at, like, you know, Gordy and El Santo, they may have had some really stock moves, but they made those beautiful. And, you know, it wasn't, you know, it was Chavo and Gordy who started introducing the more aerial aesthetics and kind of pushing the art forward. But there was this idea of throwing back to the traditions that came before you and honoring those, but also pushing forward the art form itself into something new and different. And you can see it all when you tune in to really any bout. You can see it. You can see the traditional kind of really stock moves from back in the day, where it might be an arm bar, or it might be like a hand grip or a foot stomp, and it's a really simple move, but it harkens back to this tradition. And then you see these incredible aerial maneuvers that, frankly, they put a knot in my stomach every time, because I'm like, wow, this person has just jumped 30 feet and done 3 somersaults to land on another 300-pound individual, and that kind of just beautiful translation of an entire history of art that goes back, at this point, almost 100 years. And for us at Attack Fair Press, we want to honor what's come before, but we also want to say, we're not here just to rehash what's been there. We're also here to very much celebrate the artists that are alive and taking those traditions and moving them forward in a synthesis of what was before and what was now. I was at the Laguna Art Museum checking out the collection from the self-help center in LA, and they were a Chicano rights arts organization. They did a lot of prints, they did a lot of letterpress, but they really kind of defined the Chicano poster style that was the 1970s and 80s. And even in that collection, which is a beautiful collection, if you have a chance, go see it. If you have a chance to support Self-Help Center, they're still there, still operational. But there's a great moment where you're looking at some of the first work, which was about, immigration, farm work, that kind of take on the Mexican-American identity and Chicano identity. And then you look later down the line and you see the more graffiti style, the more barrio style. And you start, I was talking to the curator, I had the pleasure to talk to the curator, and she was like, yeah, it was 10 years between when this was happening over here and then when they kind of said, okay, this is also Chicano art, and celebrating that. And so we have this long history of progression and inclusion and diversity of voices that we at Attack Fair Press want to celebrate. Because, here in Western Mass, there are it's an incredibly diverse group of people that oftentimes we don't necessarily go to in our thought process when we have the largest population here in Holyoke. It's the largest population of Puerto Rican people outside of Puerto Rico. That comes with a style and an aesthetic all in itself. And it's right next door to Easthampton, which had this Polish and Russian population, and which is right next to Northampton with its LGBT plus community, and how all of that merges. And for us at Attack Fair Press, we were like, okay, we want everybody in a room. With that is our goal, to have everyone in the room, everyone at the table. We feel very lucky right now. We've just started a series of workshops with the poet Nicole Young, who Nicole's an amazing artist, and she's going to be facilitating a group of workshops for us called the overarching name of it is the Second Awareness poetry workshops. And Nicole's section is going to focus on identity and learning and creating and growing in your own identity through writing and through exploration of writing. We're blessed that the Northampton Cultural Council is supportive of that and giving us funds to support it. But one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that it was, and I really don't like this term, but it communicates well what it is. It's a minority majority space. 6 of the 10 spaces in the workshop are actually held for people of color or other marginalized communities in our area. It's free to the public, so if you're interested in taking part, you can go to attackfairpress.com and enter your submission. There is a selection process because seats are limited, but we wanted to create a space in which those voices had really, they were going to be the most represented at the table, because to us, it's important. It's important to shift those dynamics, and it's one of the things that we try to do across the board. Is always put forward what we're doing, but shift the dynamic just enough so that it's truly representative of what we feel is the diversity of the arts community here. So, yeah, it's a good time had by all.
What are some of the additional projects that El Oso has in mind, aside of the events that you mentioned?
So El Oso, right off the bat, we're going to be doing another Arroyo of Mythical Creatures. The last time El Oso did an Arroyo, it was a Chupacabra. We had a Chupacabra, El Cucuy, we had a Thunderbird, and those three kind of made up the Arroyo at that point. We invited folks to come down and to create their own mythical creature, whether it be from their cultural history, their cultural identity, or whether it be a completely imaginary creature to add to their Arroyo. So we're going to be switching out some of the creatures. I'm not going to go too much in depth. The Thunderbird will be back, but everything else is going to be gone. Doing the Cucuy initially, I was a little like, well, this is the boogeyman. How am I going to represent the boogeyman to really talk to people? So we'll be doing that again. El Oso Azul is going to be doing some poetry, some poetry stuff, because El Oso Azul also does poetry, because he's not a fighter, he's a lover. So we'll be doing some El Oso Azul centered projects with the No Project, which is our music and poetry project. And then El Oso Azul is going to be taking some time to do some more painting work. So I dropped off one of the paintings to Johan and Radio Plasma, that this is from El Oso's bad quinceañera photos. So it's a collection of kind of abstract work done in, I've been working with a collage style for a while now, where we're painting over collage and trying to create a synthesis that represents, multi-heritaged individuals. And, one of the things, quinceañera is such a kind of ubiquitous Latino thing, but when I was growing up, this June was around quinceañera season for some reason, and I don't know why. I think it's just because it was lovely out. So I know this many people couldn't be born in June. So you'd go to the specifically Heritage Park by my house in East LA, and you'd see all of these quinceañera photos happening, and there were. I got fascinated with the idea of the bad quinceañera photo, the one that didn't truly represent kind of how beautiful of an event it was. And so with these, we're doing a series of male faces in quinceañera dresses, and so yeah, that's El Oso's next year is kind of in that realm. And we're hoping to add a few more projects. We're going to be bringing out some artists from El Centro and Mexicali that El Oso is going to do some stuff with that I don't feel super comfortable talking about right now, mainly because I want everyone to be surprised. But yeah, we're working with the Community Foundation of Western Massachusetts. We're working with a couple other sponsors to bring these artists here to New England, and kind of, for me, I'm hoping everyone packs carne asada with and tortillas and brings them to me, but really is a way to kind of widen our circle. So, yeah, that's the next year.
Carne asada. That's another perfect way to connect people.
Oh yeah.
And art.
Oh yeah.
Make sure tortillas are corn. Try them if you haven't.
And a big shout out again to Kennedy's Market in El Centro and Heber, California. The crowned king of California carne asada, and that's not just me talking. That's their 10+ years winning the carne asada cup in across the state. I think they actually got retired and they're not allowed to play anymore. But yeah. So. Hopefully we'll be able to have a carne asada here soon, because I've been dying to do a cookout. So
also, what will be some of your loving advice for our audience?
Oh, loving advice. First and foremost, from El Oso Azul is keep your own conscience. A luchador knows what his values are and doesn't need someone else to tell them what their values are. They know right and wrong. Always stand up for the little guy. because if you're in a position of power and you're in a position of strength, it's your duty to ensure that those who have less than you are protected. And always get back up. Always get back up. Even in your counted out, you get back up and you come back to the ring the next time. So those would be my advice for everyone here in Western Massachusetts.
Also, thank you so much for this amazing time and conversation, and definitely an invitation for everyone listening to check out attackbearpress.com to follow up all of your activities,
Yes.
your Instagram feed as well.
Yes, yeah. You can find us at attackbearpress.com for our website, at attackbearpress on both Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. We're always doing stuff out there, so please, if you see us, come up and give us a hug. We're really just here to try to bring a little magic and a little bit of, beauty to our community and to bring everybody in, because that's, really what we're about. We're not fighting bears, we're loving bears. So
This is our conversation with El Oso Azul, also representing Attack Bear Press. And yeah, it's all about art and about poetry and about sports and culture, representation, and fun.
yes.
Everything in the name of fun.
Everything in the name of fun. When we're having fun, we're too busy to do anything else. So.
Also, muchas gracias for being here.
Muchas gracias. De nada. Thank you.
This is a conversation with El Oso Azul on Radio Plasma. And more information also available in the posting of this session on radioplasma.com. With this, we conclude our session that has been recorded in the New England Media Lab studio inside the Gateway City Arts in Holyoke, Mass. I'm Johan Rashi Vega. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.